Saturday. First clap on one, on three. Fuck. 1, 2, 3. What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of True Crime and Cocktails. We're so glad that you're here. As always, I am your host, Lauren Ash, and as always, I am joined by my co-hostess with the mostess, Christy Oxborrow. How you feeling?
I'm feeling great. I'm
Tell me something you got.
head to toe, Philadelphia Flyers gear, prepping for a game later today.
Beauty.
A game against the team that is the love of my 8-year-old's life.
Oh, no.
Now, I've told you in the past.
Yeah.
That if it comes down to it, if
Yeah.
I'm playing my youngest child's team.
Right.
And I say I as though I'm anywhere near that building.
Well, you're the coach.
Yeah, I feel like it. Well, they kind of needed one because ours did get hold for 2 games because he's got a mouth on him. But God, I live for it. Anyhow, just know every time my coach swears, I'm swearing as well at my own home. But I have said before, if my team ever plays my youngest child's team, I will accept a team loss so that he doesn't have to. As though either of us have any say in how these games go. But I was joking with him yesterday about our teams playing.
Yeah.
And I was like, hey, bud, like super serious. I was like, bud, if you could actually do me a favor, if you could call up your team goalies and tell them when the puck comes near them, just skate out of the way. If you could tell them, just let in every puck, I'd actually really love that. And just say, like, I'm a huge fan, but my mom really needs a win. So I'd love that. Like, I just kept teasing him about that, like, all day. Without missing a beat. That kid comes back with not, I don't know, like, how would I get their number? Like, nothing like that. The concept of being on the phone with him was never in question. He just goes, huh. Actually, I think I'll just be like, hi, yeah, you're playing the Flyers next. If you could stop every goal, that'd be great. He's got sass to him.
I love it.
And now I want my team to destroy this.
Yeah. I love that you were willing to protect him and to a point. Now you're
to
like,
a point.
Threw it back at me.
He did. Here's the thing. He happened to choose, and he chose a team on his own. And which is how I want my children to live their lives. I'm not gonna, if they want to like my team, by all means. If they want to like a different team, fine. I do not force my team on them. I think they should always make up their own minds. Which is why everybody in this house cheers for somebody different, which is more than fine. He chose this team on his own. I think mostly because of the color scheme, because he loves the color yellow. He's just a very sunshiny, happy person. He's very drawn to yellow. So he has always loved Boston Bruins. There we go. I don't know why I bothered skirting around it. So he loves them. It also doesn't hurt that they're one of the top teams in the league always.
Right.
So that's not great for me. So going into this, I'm like, I would love to see him win, but the last time we played, they destroyed us. And they destroyed us, the team physically and me emotionally. You know what I'm saying?
Of course.
Yeah. The way we talk about it around here, it's almost like I'm headed to a rink somewhere because my husband will be like, what are the evening plans? And I'll be like, I've got a game tonight. As though I'm like, pack the bags, get going.
Got to go get my skates sharpened before I hit the ice.
Right?
Yeah.
Right? As though I can skate at all. Well, it's fine. Not necessary. Not a skill everyone has to have.
Nope.
But yeah, I absolutely talk about it as though I'm going to be going. I talk about it as though I'm going to be participating. It's always an us and a we. When I mention it, it's a lot. And this is just who we are. Whereas my children will be like, well, my oldest definitely, bless his heart, will be, this is the same, but about his own team. My youngest, though, is always like, well, Boston is winning. Boston is going to do this. He's not a we. He already knows he's not part of the team.
Right.
Whereas I'm like, I better be in head to toe gear so the team feels it from afar and will win because I'm wearing extra pieces.
And listen, there's no right or wrong way to fan, and I want you to
Hey,
remember that.
yeah. Look, I will say this.
Yeah.
I am, uh, as they describe, I'm a true diehard because even when the score is bad,
Yeah.
I will not turn that game off. I
That's
will
nice.
not turn it off until that buzzer is 0 and we've moved on. And let me tell you, because it's both teams that we each like, um, I'm obviously going to see the whole game through. But at the end,
Mm.
when Boston wins, their goalie, whoever was starting that day, and the backup goalie come out and skate towards each other and do a big hug. And it's the cutest fucking thing I've ever seen in my life, to the point where if I wasn't already nearly 30 years deep for my team, I would have immediately chosen Boston as my full loyal team, solely because of that tandem goalie grouping. I love them so much. The hugging, it's just they hug after every win. It's
That's nice.
adorable. Like they make a big show of it. Like they do like a everybody back and then together. It's adorable. But it doesn't mean I want to see it when they're playing my team because we
Right.
don't see the hug unless they win. So what I wouldn't give my team in the land of playoffs, my team needs these 2 points more than Boston. Boston,
Right.
I'll be fine. Like my team needs this more.
Sure.
So
And listen, for those listening, there's an interesting phenomenon in Canada because I think in the States, people tend to follow and root for the team that is like physically close to them, or like
yes,
they grew up there, or their family rooted for. Like in
yeah,
Canada, it's a little bit different because we don't have the same amount. We have very few
yeah,
teams to choose from. First of all, there used to be more. There's not anymore. So a lot of people just decide to choose
yeah,
what team they're going to root for. So it's kind of like an interesting Canadian phenomenon, which is ironic in hockey because it originated in Canada. But it feels like, again, we don't have that many teams in Canada anymore, right?
we I mean we
What,
do. it's
6?
it's a whole thing because I mean we had Winnipeg, then we lost Winnipeg, then Winnipeg moved somewhere else, but then Winnipeg came back.
Mm,
um but there's absolutely far more teams in America. But I mean, really, Canada, you're looking at like Vancouver, Edmonton, Calgary, Winnipeg, Ottawa, Toronto, Quebec, or sorry, Montreal.
so that's 8.
And then that's it.
Right. I said 6.
And
Well, I was
we're
close.
spread out enough. And I mean, at this point, if I if I lived in a city that had one, would I attend games? Yeah, probably. And I'd probably would have grown up. I mean, I
Right.
kind of moved all over the place, so I never really had time to build a loyalty. Um, but yeah, if I grew up in a big city, like if I grew up in like New York or Philadelphia, wherever, I would probably have a big loyalty to those teams based solely on growing up around it.
Right. And
But
since there are
yeah,
32 teams in the NHL,
thank you so much.
trying to make it look like I pulled that out my ass, but I did
I
Google it.
like it.
Yeah, 8
Well,
out of
there
32.
didn't used to be. There was 30 for the longest time.
Right.
But I mean, Seattle is new within the last like year or two.
Oh,
Vegas was they brought
oh,
Vegas
right.
in like 6 years ago, 7 years
Right.
ago.
But then the other thing is like baseball. We got one team in Canada. We got the Toronto Blue Jays. That's it.
Oh, sure.
We used to have the Montreal Expos.
Right.
No more.
Well, it's
Um,
like basketball, right?
right. We have the Toronto Raptors. One team for an entire country.
Which is wild.
It is wild.
Because where did Vancouver go?
I don't remember.
They must have because sometimes teams just kind of like disband and they move on and they do whatever. But sometimes they like pick them up and move them somewhere else,
Yeah.
like they did with the original Winnipeg Jets.
Right.
Oh fuck! I was reminded of this the other day. I want to say Atlanta. I think they went to like Atlanta and became the Thrashers. But then Atlanta went somewhere else. And then all of a sudden they were like, you know what? Manitoba is jonesing for a team again. Bring back the Jets. So they brought them back. No shade. By all means, do what you want to do. It's a lot. It's a lot of teams. And so, yeah, I do get a lot of like, when I mention my team, I get a lot of like, why don't you like Edmonton? Because they're so close. Or why on
Right.
earth would you choose, of all of the teams, why do you choose them? And June 7th, 1997. I have an exact, I have an exact date. I have an
Right.
exact date. Went to a friend's house. We were heading to a movie. She she needed an extra minute or something, so I just sat in the living room randomly on channels, flipping through trying to find something to watch, and it was the Flyers playing Detroit in the Stanley Cup playoffs, and I was like, "Okay," and I watched hockey a bit when I was a kid, but not a ton, but I collected hockey cards as a kid, and that was a huge thing for me, so I was drawn in. I sat, I watched part of the game, and even though you knew in your soul that there was no chance they were winning that cup, they didn't give up, and they had a heart that stuck with me to this day. So that was the moment I was like, "Yeah, it was," and that was the game that Detroit won the Stanley Cup.
Wow.
So it was them losing the Stanley Cup that made me a fan. 1997. But it stuck with me, and I am so
Listen.
loyal to those boys, and I'm so angry every time I watch a game that is, because of course there are so many different people, so many different broadcasters who will broadcast the game, and so you'll get different people announcing and stuff like that. Every time it's not sports, NBC Sports Philadelphia, um, it'll be some jokers that are talking up their team. Fine, that's what you're gonna do. Every single time they're like, "Well, it's a surprise. Absolutely no one saw the Flyers doing this well." And I was like, "Fuck you." Some of us believe in that team and have believed in them for almost 30 years. So don't be like, "Wow, none of us saw this coming." Like, I could rant about it forever. I won't. But I have a big issue with certain um, broadcasts focusing and harping on their own team and being like, "This team's the best." We've played a game. I love that I genuinely can't remember who it was against. We lost, which is why I can't remember who it was against, because it doesn't matter. Um, and the at the end, oh, I think it was like Washington or something. At the end of the game, the person announcing went, "Well, the good guys won." So, and I was like, "Fuck you." As announcers,
Yeah.
don't have a bias.
Yeah.
Give me the same goal. He scored. Like, give me the same amount of that energy, regardless as to which way it goes.
You want bipartisan
I do.
announcers.
And I'm going to say this on NBC Sports Philadelphia, JJ and Boosh absolutely give you that. And by Boosh, I mean Brian Boucher. And by JJ, I mean Jim
JJ
Jackson.
and Boosh.
And by JJ, I mean Jim Jackson. It's JJ and Boosh. I want you to know, every time those two men come on the screen, my arms just instinctively raise in the air and I go, JJ and Boosh. I've told my cats, not that they understand English, but I've told them if I got them this season, as opposed to multiple years ago when I did, I would have named them JJ and Boosh. 100%.
That's
And
cute.
every time I see them, I would have been like, Boosh! Because Brian Boucher, my favorite Flyer of all time. He doesn't listen, Christy. My point is, they are willing. They will be like, hey, this other team is doing something great. Let's talk about it. Or they'll be like, not a big fan of that choice the Flyers just did. This is what I want. I want you to be, I want you to be Switzerland.
Impartial.
Yes. The other ones will be like, fucking Flyers, man, pieces of shit. So look at our glowing, beautiful boys who don't do anything wrong. I can't stand it.
Mm.
Every single one does it, and I can't stand it. There's also one, and I can't remember his name, thank God, because I don't want to shout him out accidentally. There's one particular prick, I'm going to say it, who my team played Pittsburgh a few weeks ago, and he was getting heated because Philadelphia was doing well, and he was getting pissed off that they were talking about Philadelphia in a positive way. And I was like, I can't pick what feed I'm watching.
Mm,
So when I'm sitting down to watch a game, I just want to watch a game. Like I would rather have children who have no concept of what's happening tell me what's happening as opposed to someone who's like, oh, here's the fuck boys again. Like, get lost. It's irritating.
get lost.
Like, if they wouldn't be so negative,
Right.
then I'd be fine. If you're going to be negative to everybody, fine. But just make it equal. Treat everybody equal is my whole point.
Yeah.
It's madness. It's madness. And again, would I feel this strongly if it wasn't my team in particular that gets shit on? Probably not. But I've spent nearly 30 years having my team be shit on because everybody underestimates them.
Right.
But it's like, why do you think the hardcore fans are with them for life? Because we love them. So stop being fuckers about it. JJ and Boosh. Again, I love them so much. I do openly talk about them and the players as though I know them well.
Yeah.
Like when I celebrate a goal or something great that one of the players has done, I will often use their nickname.
Right.
Um, even though I've never met them in person. Or
Sure.
even meeting them in person once does not validate me using their nickname. But I will use once I learn they have a nickname that the team uses, I will use it.
And
I will
that's your
use it.
prerogative. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
Again, there's a lot of different ways to fan.
You're right. And look, no one goes harder than Philadelphia Flyers fans. We are passionate to a fault.
I mean, you say fault, I say passionate to a joy.
Yeah. I mean, look, there are times during games where it's the last 5 minutes and people just assume they're not going to win, and you watch people walk out of those stands, and I'm mortified. My ass is sitting there regardless.
Oh,
Even
yeah.
though you're like, this is physically painful for me, I'm sitting here because the last thing I want is them on that ice, feeling the way I'm feeling and looking up and watching people walk out. I'm not doing that.
You're holding space for them.
I am.
Yep.
You're right. You're right. I love that because at this point in my life, I'm old enough. I feel like I've birthed them all.
Yeah.
Some of them that's impossible, which is nice. But
Which is nice.
it's nice to have a few where it's like they would understand my references. They would understand me making like a joke about the early 90s. They'd be like, I was there.
Yeah.
Whereas there are some where it's like, I didn't show up till after you graduated high school. I don't know what you're talking about. And it's like, that's horrifying.
Yeah.
That's horrifying.
I mean, I will say I did do I performed a couple of songs at the Ultimate Jam Night at Whiskey A Go Go last week, and the opening band was and the theme of the night was all women. Women in rock.
Oh, nice.
Beautiful. And their opening band, I believe they're called Turning Jane. They were fucking fantastic.
Oh,
Just fucking killers. Like every one of them, so tight, so great. Like I was like, this is wow, these gals are really fucking killing it up there.
yeah.
And the guy who organizes the night came up to me and he said, "What do you think?" And I said, "They're killers. They're great. They're awesome." He goes, "They're 17."
Fuck off.
Yeah. And I was like, I could be their mother. I could be their mothers.
It's tough when you
I
hit
don't
that.
love it. I don't love it.
Yep,
And
there it
listen,
is. There
I
it
need to
is.
be clear. This is no shade to them. It's and I'll name it sheer jealousy. It turns into sheer jealousy that some gals at that age could be that talented and that ambitious and all of the things. And you know what I shouldn't say is jealousy because I don't begrudge it to them. It's envy. I'm like, wow, good for you. And
Billie
also, how
Eilish.
dare you be born after 1990?
Yes,
How
Billie
dare you be
Eilish.
born after 2000? It's rude.
Yeah, 100%. Billie Eilish just won her second Oscar at what, 22 years old?
Is she 22?
And my ass is sitting on the couch shoveling chips in there. And I'm just like, wow, she's done that at 22. What had I done by 22? Uh, well, I'm gonna say it, drunken bar antics that I'll never tell my children about.
You're right, she is 22. I thought she was younger for some reason. 22 is young, don't get me
It's
wrong.
wild. It's
Yeah.
so wild. Like, again, this is a beautiful thing. I could not be happier, especially to see, women, succeed.
Yes.
Um, it's just really wild to watch someone do something huge in their life, and then you're like, not just, "What did I do at their age?" But then you're like, "What did I do 20 years past their age?" And it's like, I'll say it. And there's nothing wrong with it because I know it's not. I'm never winning an Oscar.
Don't say
Never.
that.
Never winning an Oscar, and that's okay.
It is
I
okay.
have thanked everybody important to me in the shower with my shampoo bottle in my hand. I've done what I've needed to do because that's the only time I'm getting that opportunity. But at 22, to win another Oscar, it's like, holy shit. And then immediately you're like, what have I done? You know what I mean?
Yeah, and listen, make no mistake, comparison is the death of joy, right? Isn't that
Oh,
the
sure.
or the
Sure, sure.
thief of joy, whatever it is. Because we've done amazing things. We've done amazing
You're
things.
right.
I mean, listen, again, it took me till I was 40 to pursue doing music.
Sure.
And there's its own kind of there's its own kind of, I don't know what the word would be, joy that comes with that. Joy is not the right word. Yeah. Again, I just find it rude that anybody was born after 2000 in general. I don't like it. And
Yeah. Oh,
I don't
it's upsetting.
I don't want to think about it.
It's upsetting. In my mind, they're like half of that team in my mind gets dropped off at the rink by their parents
Yeah.
before a game.
Yeah.
They're too young. Too young. I don't understand how it went from like watching hockey. God, they're so cute. I could marry one of them one day. I was supposed to marry Mario Lemieux, FYI.
I'm so
Turns out,
sorry that didn't
turn
happen for
well,
you.
it turns out he didn't know, and that's okay. He was also a tad older than I am, which I was okay with. But I don't actually know how much older. Doesn't matter. The point is, I went from that to now where I'm like, oh, bless him, born born in like 2001. And it's
Yeah.
like, that's no, I can't. Somebody who's like close in age to my own children, it's like, no, no, no. It's uncomfortable and it's wild.
Mario Lemieux is currently 58.
Hot. What was
What?
what was that? Oh, 50. I did not mean to respond that way. Okay. So we're looking at, so he's 58. I'll say it. I have no shame. I'm 42. So we're 16. So in 1990, so
Mhm.
in 1990, when I was 9
Mhm.
and thought he was the living fucking end, although it may have been more like 1991. Um, oh God, I was 10, he was 26.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that was not a relationship for me. But then again, I also did think I went through that phase where I thought Brian Adams was also going to be my future spouse.
Yeah.
And then I got ripped apart by people who were like, he's way too old for you. There was no, he's famous. You're never going to meet him. That's never going to happen. It was never that. It was always, he's way too old for you. What are you thinking? And I was like,
That's
obviously, I just said a 58-year-old man was hot. I obviously am okay with an older gentleman. I married young,
Listen,
though.
I want to remind you that David Duchovny,
Oh, yeah.
who for me for many years was the end all be all.
Live all. Yeah.
Um 22 years older than me. 22
Oh,
years older than me.
shit.
And I used to say openly when I was a kid, when I was like 11, 12 years old, I
Yeah.
was like, when I'm 18 and he's 40, it'll be fine.
Oh,
Why was any,
Lauren.
like, listen, like, this
Why did
isn't
no one sit
all
you
out my
down?
mother, but like, why wasn't there any sort of like, no,
Um,
it's not her job. The point is, I was saying this to anyone and everyone. And I feel like that should have been something that maybe somebody said to me, like, ooh, maybe that's not. maybe when you're 18, you shouldn't be angling for a 40-year-old, you know?
Well, great news. We're the same. Brian Adams is currently 64 years old.
And
Oh, yeah. I'm not blind or dead. I can
I'm not blind or dead. Beautiful.
I mean, but again, that's a 22-year age difference.
Listen, you and I, you got to remember, we come from the same tree in a
We
sense.
we absolutely, absolutely do.
Yeah, of
Um, I mean, my God. I think back to obviously Blanche has always been a deep, deep part of who I am.
course.
So many, so many of those crushes were just age inappropriate.
Yeah.
There were a handful though that were like correct age
I
or
think
like
the thing
same
is,
age or within 5 years, that kind of thing. But
I think that
the hard majority were uncomfortably older.
and I think the thing is that the difference is like having a crush is one thing. I think the
Yeah.
other thing is that we would take it to the next step and really do the logistics and the math of like,
Yep.
here's how we can make this work. I don't know,
Yeah.
maybe other young people do that with their crushes too. I don't know. I
Sure.
don't think that they think about it as hard as we did. Like,
Mm.
here are the ways that this can work. Here's how this can happen. Here's how it's
Mhm.
going to go. Like, I think that that's maybe the thing that, and you know what? We're go-getters. This is what I'm learning. You know what? Maybe we're not as far off from those 17-year-olds as we think we are, you know?
Oh, I'm sure of that. Like,
And
oh,
maybe
yeah.
if we had channeled that kind of passion and energy that we were putting towards the logistics of our crushes, and
Yeah.
maybe if we channeled that into something else like music, maybe then we also would have been headlining or opening at the Whiskey A Go Go at age 17. I don't know. It's impossible to speculate. But what's not impossible to speculate about is I'm going to be playing the Viper Room this week, March 22nd, Friday, March 22nd.
Mhm.
Please buy tickets and come. I'm going on at 7:45.
That's
Now,
nice.
in the rock and roll world, you know, it's like I've done other shows where I'm not hitting the stage till 11 p.m. and
Oh,
I
yeah.
can't get anybody to come out to those, and I get it. I'm not leaving the house at 10:30 for an 11 p.m. show. Are you kidding?
Oh, sure.
No way. This is 7:45. You're in the car heading home at 8:30. I can't
Oh,
take
that's
any
nice.
excuses that it's too late. Blah blah blah. Go to Instagram, go to Lauren Elizabeth Ash, click the link in my bio, get tickets. They're only $10. It's
Oh,
they're gonna be 15 at the door, so you
it's
gotta get them
more
in
expensive
advance.
not to go.
It's more expensive not to go. More expensive not to go. But listen, on that note, we gotta get into this episode. Now, before I
Yeah.
start, what you drinking over there? You got a Slurpee going?
I do, 'cause, I think I mentioned it on the last episode that, I had to forego straws for a chunk of time, so I had to go without a Slurpee. Um, I used up a large chunk of that time getting a strawberry lemonade from Wendy's
Mm,
and then, like, just drinking it, even though it's, like, 90% ice, and
mhm.
it's a difficult, drink without a straw,
Yeah.
but that's how I got through it. I had my first Slurpee in well over a week yesterday, and it wasn't great, and I won't lie, this one, uh, they had to physically turn the machines on for me because they weren't on yet,
Mm.
but I was in a time crunch, and I could have left the store and gone somewhere else, but, that's no, that's not who I am. He was willing to turn the machines on for me. I just accepted it, and so it's already quite watered down, so I'm probably gonna do mostly a water,
Yeah, oh.
for this episode, you know,
Yeah.
because it is what it is.
Well, listen, we're recording this in the daytime because
Yeah.
I had a hell of a week. I've wrapped season 2 of Not Dead Yet Now. Literally last night, late, we wrapped. Um, so we're doing this on a Saturday. So yeah, I'm just on my second Diet Coke and I am buzzing.
Oh, sure.
Buzzing. But mostly buzzing about this episode because, of course, this episode is entitled Scandal Home Improvement. This is a Christie curated episode of the show. And for those who maybe haven't heard one before, these are my favorite episodes. Another one that comes to mind, of course, is The Glee Curse. If you haven't
Oh.
already, check it out. It's a romp. But when Christy gets an idea and then she just researches and makes an episode, she curates it
Mhm.
herself rather than pulling from a documentary or something. These are always my favorite. When she pitched this idea to me, I was like, put it as soon on the schedule as you can make it happen. She said, I already have. So That's what we're
Oh,
coming in with, and I can't wait because I think that in general, people forget that they're in anything. There's gonna be a lot of different, ways in of scandal and crazy stories, so let's
yeah,
see what she found 'cause, other than a few things, I have no idea where this is even gonna go, and I'm sure you didn't when you started either, and that's the magic.
I 100% didn't. I knew I had when I went into this, I was one actor in my mind,
And
and it
now
just snowballed.
well, listen, on that note, here's a little backstory for you. For those who are familiar with our show, you know that Christy has a deep rooted love of all things 90s, especially 90s sitcoms. And somehow she managed to combine that very love with the true crime audience's love of scandals. So we're going to look at the 90s hit series Home Improvement and go through the many scandals that the cast has faced before, during, and after the show's 8-year run. Is this the most fun that Christy has ever had researching? 100% yes. Is she hoping that we'll all love this episode as much as she does so that she has an excuse to do a second episode? To quote Christy, absolutely.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I mean, I'll say right off the top, I know a lot of times in this episode, written in my notes is literally, "I'm having so much fun."
I
Like,
love that.
I loved it, so much. Um, before I get into it, I love that, I completely forgot, I am going to give a quick shout out to someone who I was just informed, is a listener of our show, which is incredibly kind and very sweet. So shout out to Tat. Thank you for listening, and good luck on your upcoming midterms and finals because I know university is coming to a close soon. I think I don't know coming to a close. This is what happens when she goes off book and doesn't just read the papers in front of her. You know what I mean?
I love it.
Anyhow. So disclaimer,
Yeah.
because while this, for the most part, is no, not for the most part, 100% is the most fun I've ever had. There is still darkness within the episode, which is why the episode happened to begin with. So this episode will contain mentions of spousal abuse, sexual assault, and alcohol abuse. So trigger warning for those who need it. So I'm starting this one off with a question to our dear listeners. Where were you on Tuesday nights between 1991 and 1999? While some of you may say, not alive yet, or simply you're too young to remember, I think a lot of us would say we spent those nights in front of the TV watching Home Improvement. Why? Because JTT was the living end and we all knew it. Let's be clear about that.
I like that
So,
it's taken roughly 30 seconds of this episode to get to JTT. I should never have thought otherwise.
I also would like it to be known, I believe he was born in 1981. Same Z's. So it's okay. However I want to talk about him, it's okay because legally it's always been okay.
Yep,
So I feel good about that. So
sure.
again, most fun I've ever had. So according to IMDb, Home Improvement was a sitcom that followed, quote, the daily trials and tribulations of Tim, the toolman Taylor, a television show host raising three mischievous boys with the help from his loyal co host, loving wife, and eccentric neighbor. I think Jill did most of that raising, but neither here nor there.
Yep.
So it starred Tim Allen as Tim Taylor, Patricia Richardson as Tim's wife Jill, and as their sons, the ultimate trifecta of triple named 90s child stars Zachary Ty Bryan, Jonathan Taylor Thomas, and Taryn Noah Smith. The show also featured Earl Hindman as the mostly hidden neighbor Wilson, Debbie Dunning as Tool Time girl Heidi, and Mr. Richard Karn as Al Borland. Just know that without any evidence whatsoever, I fully believe that Richard Karn is an angel on earth, and I refuse to hear otherwise. So the show debuted on ABC on September 17th, 1991. It ran for 8 seasons, which included 203 episodes. Now, before we get to the scandals, I thought it'd be fun to bring in some random trivia about the show. Why? Because if you haven't noticed by today's choice of episode already, I am fully off my rocker. So, first fun fact, actress Frances Fisher, best known for playing Rose's mother on Titanic or John Nolan's mother on The Rookie, she was originally cast to play Jill Taylor. Unfortunately for Frances, test audiences absolutely did not like her in the role.
Oh.
So after the original pilot, Frances was replaced by Patricia Richardson, who had just given birth to twins. And yet, she made it work. Another fun fact about Patricia Richardson is that she is among the group of female celebrities who I have such an unwavering love for that I consider them to be like my surrogate aunts, even though I'm not related to them in any way and will likely never meet them in my lifetime. Also included in the list, I'm so glad you asked, uh, BB Newworth, Wendy Malick, Laurie Metcalf, Alfre Woodard, Bernadette Peters, Christine Baranski, Angela Bassett, Beverly D'Angelo, Goldie Hawn, Helen Mirren, Debbie Allen, Sigourney Weaver, Dolly Parton, Patti LaBelle, Sally Field, Diane Wiest, Emma Thompson, Stockard Channing, and what I hope is friend of the podcast, Miss Candy Bergen.
Oh, yeah. Did
And
I tell
yeah,
you that I recently met Wendy Malick?
well, I mean, I saw the show.
Oh, yeah. Of course. Here's what it
That
is.
that was the
They
moment where I was like, "Oh my god, she met Wendy Malick." Yeah.
the episodes all blur, so I couldn't
Of
remember if it had aired yet or
course.
not. I thought I was
Of
just gonna give
course.
you a great gift of being like, "Guess who's coming on Not Dead Yet?" But never mind. Anyway, she was
I'm
lovely.
so
She's
sorry.
everything you want her to be.
Well, that's why she's one of my surrogate,
There you go.
aunts, aunties, whatever we're gonna say. It's very
Well
good.
chosen. Well chosen.
And I know I just gave a very, very long list, but I want you to know that that is literally only part of the list. Um, I could go into the full length of the list, but we don't have time for that. To be clear, those were my surrogate aunties, however we'd like to say that. My surrogate mothers basically included the casts of the Golden Girls and Designing Women because those 8 women raised me.
Yeah.
So, are we mere minutes into the written portion of this episode and I'm already completely unhinged? You bet. Buckle up. So, on the show, Tim Taylor hosts a fictional show called Tool Time. Apparently, while the show was in development, Tool Time was supposed to be called Hammer Time? But since MC Hammer's smash hit You Can't Touch This had just released and it includes the phrase Hammer Time, the producers had to change the show to Tool Time to avoid any, negative legal matters.
That's hilarious.
See Hammer side note.
Of course.
God, so much fucking fun. So, You Can't Touch This won the Grammy for Best R&B Song and Best Rap Solo Performance. It was also the first rap song to be nominated for Record of the Year. Now, it wouldn't be a True Crime and Cocktails episode without extra true crime bits, so I have to point out Mr. Hammer's financial troubles.
Ooh.
And yes, I know his name isn't really Mr. Hammer. I just made myself laugh so hard when I first wrote that I absolutely had to include it because, again, I'm off my rocker. I should be checked on. Anyhow,
Should be
MC's
checked on.
MC's real name, of course, is Stanley Kirk Burrell. I'll never know why he went with MC Hammer and not MC Stanner. It was right there. It's too early to say this again. This is my favorite episode I've ever done. Again, his name's Stanley, MC Stanner. It's no. Okay, I'm here all week. So while Stanley accumulated an estimated fortune of 70 million, he blew through that money pretty quickly, mainly because he bought 21 racehorses, 20 luxury cars, a private jet, and a mansion that included 200 staff.
That's
This
insane.
nobody needs 200 people around them in a home.
No.
No. One person to make you a sandwich, one person to clean up after it. Done.
Yeah, I guess that's the dream. Sandwich maker and crumb sweeper. That's the
Yeah.
that's the true crime and cocktails. That's the height of what we would want.
Yeah. Okay, fine. And then maybe a laundry person.
Sure.
Okay, fine. And then someone who can like run errands. So I
This
never have
is
to leave.
how it
Done.
starts. This is how you get to 200.
I'll bet he originally was like, I need the sandwich person and the cleaner. What else could you possibly need? I need a person for that. And then next thing you know, he has a staff of 200.
Yeah.
Fuck. Yep, this is how it happens.
Yep.
Well, I shouldn't have been so quick to judge that because obviously this is I mean, I'd have one person whose sole job was to go get Slurpees because they would know
Yeah.
exactly my consistency preference. And they would know. They'd walk in, look at it, and go, no. Oh, who are we kidding? I would have a small camera pointed at the machines at all times so I could watch it eagle-eyed and be like, "That's the consistency I want. Now you can go."
What I like is the idea that you're outfitting your local 7-Eleven stores with, with security cameras only on a feed for you.
Yeah, I just want it pointing towards the machine.
Again, this gets us back to if you have this kind of money, you should just have the machines in the home. Like you should have your own Slurpee machine at that point.
This is, this is why I need a financial advisor. You're correct. It did not dawn on me in
Right.
any way, shape, or form.
Right.
Just buy a fucking machine yourself.
At this point, rather than the money it would take to hire a full-time staff member and to outfit this business with security cameras, I do think it's gonna be a savings to you in the end to just get the,
Mhm.
like, commercial grade machine
You're
in the
right.
home.
You're right. And then basically get one that'll have like 4 flavors. Then it's always got my favorite. And then everyone else can pick a favorite flavor. If they want, I can change one out every once in a while. I'm gonna have somebody else change that out.
Oh, yeah. I will also put out into the universe because I wanna manifest this for myself. My boyfriend and I's dream is to have one of those Coke machines where you press the screen and you can make all the different combinations. You
Oh,
can add,
sure.
like, lime, vanilla, whatever to, like, any
Oh,
soda that they have. That's what I would like in the home. Why do I keep saying in the home? I don't know.
it's
I'm
like
matching
we're
your energy.
envisioning a future, like we're envisioning the future that we're gonna have of us at an old folks' home. Hopefully, that has fountain pop. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, I gotta be careful. I gotta be really specific in how I manifest this because if I play my cards wrong, then it could be like, yeah, you ended up living in a home with a fucking pop machine, but
Sure.
that's not what you want.
No, you can live in my house with my staff of 200, which apparently I do need.
Fantastic.
This is just,
It's
off a
everything I
rocker.
want it to be.
So, the staff alone cost Stanley the fact that I keep calling him Stanley is killing me. It cost him between 500,000 and 1,000,000 a month. Stanley eventually had to file for bankruptcy, which of course is not a crime. Stanley claimed he owed at least 10,000,000 to more than 200 creditors, and he said he only had 1,000,000 in assets. So Stanley files for Chapter 11 bankruptcy, which is odd because that's usually what you do when you're a business. For a personal bankruptcy, it's either like a Chapter 7 or a Chapter 13. So it's weird he'd file as a business instead of as a person. But when you file a Chapter 11 as a business, you're allowed to keep your assets. So maybe that was the incentive there. But it was then discovered that Stanley had about 1.3 million in unpaid taxes.
Oof.
Oh, and then there was his arrest in 2013 for allegedly obstructing a police officer. Stanley claims the officer pulled him over, pulled a gun out, and said, "Are you on parole or probation?" According to the officer, Stanley was driving a car with expired registration, which also did not belong to him. When the officer asked who the car's owner was, Stanley allegedly became argumentative and refused to answer. There was a court date scheduled, but the charges were eventually dropped, and Stanley called the entire incident, quote, a teachable moment. Oh, God. But back to the home improvement trivia. because I know we're all chomping at the bit for more of that. Um, while at home, I mean, obviously it's a show, but while Tim Taylor is seen in his house, he was known for wearing shirts with the name of either a sports team or a university from Michigan. Tim Allen was raised in Michigan, so when the show first started, he just literally wore his own Michigan shirts from home, kind of as a shout out to his state. It's like if we had a sitcom, I would just be in constant Flyers gear until the
Right.
episode where I just randomly come out dressed as Gritty for no reason. And I absolutely do not reference it in any way. And I wait for you to say something.
I like that.
Yeah, me too. Um, but once fans noticed that he was constantly wearing Michigan stuff, Michigan schools would send Tim stuff to wear on the show as a not so subtle way of advertising their own school. It got to the point where Tim Allen posted on his own personal website basically, hey, Michigan schools, if you send me shirts, I will wear it on the show, which I find fascinating. And look, if he's a fan, I mean, by all means. And look, my ultimate dream, nobody asked, not the time for it. My ultimate dream is that someone who's somehow linked to the Philadelphia Flyers listens to this show and
Sure.
can know how much love I have for those boys. Mostly a motherly love, but like, you know what I mean? Like I just my ultimate dream would be like one of their wives or girlfriends or somebody is like, "Oh my God, did you know she talks about you a lot?" And then they're like, "Oh shit, here's signed photos of us." I'm not saying I don't.
What I
Anyhow,
like is what inspired this was a story about free t-shirts. You've changed the ask. And what I like is that
yeah,
you're putting it out there specifically.
yeah. Look, I'm just saying, is it a dream of mine to be in the same building as my team? Of course it is. Is it a dream to someday go to Philadelphia? Yes, and I plan to. Um, I could never meet them. I could never. I would die. And I would probably be very embarrassing and be like, I know that this means nothing because you don't know me and I'm just a random middle-aged woman from Canada. But I'm just so proud of you. Like I would get emotional. It would be a
Yeah, I
whole
think
thing.
maybe, but when you're manifesting, I think maybe put out there like the big thing, like you want the tickets to the game. Because
Oh, of
if
course
they
I
have the
do.
power to give you a signed photo, they got the power to get you some ticks.
Well, here's also the joke. My, I truly believe that someday, if I push this hard enough and on
Sure.
the right levels,
Yeah.
somebody somehow connected to that world is going to be like, we've told them about you. If you can get to us, we got tickets for the game for you, and we'll put you in one of those luxury boxes. And to that, I'm going to say, hold the phone. Can I choose the area? Because I don't want to be up in a luxury box up high, having fun times way up high. I want to be in it. I want to be so close to the ice that people are like, does she play for them? Nobody's ever going to think that, but I want to be so close to the ice that I can see everything. You know what I mean? I want to take a picture on my phone that is so clear of the players that I didn't even zoom in. I just want it
Here's
to be like not zoomed. Like I want someone to look at that picture and go, "Wow, you were close." And I go, "It wasn't zoomed." Like that. That's my
okay.
dream.
Yeah. Cool. I think you're great. What I like is I said be more specific. You got more specific. Perfect.
Yeah.
She's talking seats so close it's uncomfortable for the players. I get
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Here's the thing. Have I considered like would I like to sit right behind the bench, like the seats as close behind their bench as possible? I thought about it, but I don't know. I mean, I'd be dying. Um, just a couple seats up, just a couple rows up so I can see everything that's going on. That's all I ask. That's
You
all I
should do
ask.
one of the boxes one day too, though, because it is you do have
Oh, round
it's
two,
an
yeah.
interesting view. Yeah.
Oh, round two. If you think I don't want to be up there in the off hope that someone's like, because I don't need to tell you when JJ and Boosh, when they have their own booth up there. So the odds of me ever running into him I mean, I would kick myself because I have a McFarlane figure of Mr. Brian Boucher that I purchased back in the day, and what I wouldn't give for him to sign it, but I can't exactly carry that around. It's large, and I would be too concerned of it ever getting hurt in any way. But like, let me tell you, I would shit my pants to like be in the same space as that man.
I get
And then
it.
all I'd want to talk about is like the 8 fucking overtimes he went into with Pittsburgh in like 2009 or whatever year it was. Like, that's all I'd want to talk about. And he'd just be like, thanks, ma'am. Thank you. Like, obviously looking to JJ and like, get me out of this. And I would just be like, I'm so sorry. No, it would be uncomfortable for him. I'd be in my glory.
Yeah.
I hope everybody came in today being like, you know what Christy doesn't talk about enough? Her team. I hope that's what everybody came here today and they were like, she should do that more.
Listen, I think if anything, people know that they can't begin to expect less.
Yeah. Look, they had to know today that this episode was going all over the place.
Yeah.
Did I anticipate it going as hard for my team as I have? No. But I also didn't think I was going to show up today in a brand new hoodie that I did just buy and pants that have gritty on them. Did I think that? No.
Listen, we can't begin to predict these things.
Yeah. And look, that's part of our magic is you can't predict where we're going to go with this.
Yeah.
And look, if you think that I didn't make our social media follow the Flyers in every way possible, in the hope that at some point I'll talk about them so I can do a promo where I tag them and they even just acknowledge my existence. I had the Seattle Seahawks acknowledge my existence once 10 years ago. And I'm not even a fan. And I shit my pants. Like, I lost my mind. I have screenshots saved. Like, my oldest is a very big fan of theirs. And it was Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And my oldest was in full, like, he had a helmet on. He had all of this Seattle Seahawks gear on. And I took a picture of him and I tweeted it to them in like a ready for game day, whatever, hoping they'd like it.
Hmm.
And then my youngest, so I guess this wasn't that long. This was like probably 10-ish years ago. My youngest, who was like a year old at the time, at the time I only had 2 children, but I had him put the helmet on and do like a football stance, and I took a picture of him, tweeted it to the team again. The team didn't like the photos. They took the 2 photos, put them together, retweeted it in like I can't remember the exact wording, but it was like, if we've learned anything, we've learned it's always best to do things together. And they tweeted it out and I fucking lost my mind. I lost my mind. And I'm not even a fan. It was just that 2 seconds of their social media person acknowledging me that I lost it. And so I'm just saying, Philadelphia Flyers have one of the best social media people I've ever seen. Their captions crack me up. And so I'm just saying, just one slight acknowledgement and I'll die. And that's how I'd like to go.
There you go.
There we go. Well,
Huh?
Didn't think Seattle Seahawks were coming up, but
Who knows where this is going to go?
nobody knows. I have
Nope.
written notes and none of that's in here, but that's not the point.
Not the point.
God, I'm all over the place. I'm going to try and stay focused until the break now.
You're doing great.
I can't guarantee what's going to happen after the break.
It's nice when we go off the rails.
I hope so. I hope so. So, another fun fact is originally the co-host of Tool Time was supposed to be a character named Glenn, who was supposed to be played by Stephen Tobolowsky, who you may know as Ned from Groundhog Day.
Of course.
So Stephen gets cast, but he's not available to shoot the first few episodes. So the writers created a character, Al Borland, as a temporary stand-in. Richard Karn, who played Al, had such good chemistry with Tim Allen that they just scrapped the character of Glenn completely, and Al Borland was on the show the entire time.
Wow.
Fun story, angel human Richard Karn ran a stop sign, which is an amazing statement to make, by the way. He runs a stop sign on his way home from a theater rehearsal. At the time, he was appearing in King Lear.
Oh,
So,
wow.
for the infraction, Richard was forced to attend an LA County traffic school where he met a talent agent who mentioned that a show called Home Improvement was in the process of casting. Richard, who personally knew a few people working on the show, got himself an audition, and the rest is, as they say, history. Fun fact, Richard Karn is on my list of surrogate celebrity uncles.
Of course he is.
Of course he is. Which also includes Richard Kind, Bob Newhart, Martin Short, Nathan Lane, Patrick Stewart, Wallace Shawn, Bob Hoskins, Phil Collins, Martin Mull, Ben Vereen, Rowan Atkinson, actor Bill Nye, scientist Bill Nye, and Alan Rickman, Robin Williams, Meshack Taylor, and Leslie Jordan. May they rest.
May they rest.
And yeah, great catch to those who notice that my list of uncles is considerably shorter than my list of aunts. In my defense, I can't think of a man as my surrogate uncle if I'm attracted to him. And if you know Blanche at all, that makes my uncle options limited.
Yeah.
So just know that. Moving on. Ashley Judd
Mm.
auditioned for the role of Lisa, the Tool Time girl. One of the show's creators really loved Ashley's audition, but he felt Ashley was too talented to play the quote, simple eye candy. Again, 90s and misogyny went hand in hand. So this creator loved Ashley, but didn't think she's right for the role. So they called Ashley's agent and told them that they were going to create a character for her of Tim's sister. Ashley turned them down and said she actually wanted to focus more on movie than TV. And then she accepted a role on the show Sisters and appeared on it for 3 years.
Interesting.
Fascinating. Fun fact, Ashley was in the 1996 classic A Time to Kill, which Lauren and I have discussed in earlier episodes of this show.
Of course.
And if I have a reason to bring it up, I darn well will.
Yep.
So Ashley auditions for the role of Lisa, which would eventually go to Pamela Anderson. And since we're talking scandals today, we gotta talk about Pam and Tommy and that sex tape scandal.
Yeah.
On New Year's Eve, 1994, Pamela meets Motley Crue drummer Tommy Lee at a bar. According to Tommy, at the end of the night, he walked Pamela to her car and they shared a kiss. Over the next 6 weeks, they spoke on the phone almost every day and didn't see each other again until February. 3 days after reuniting, Tommy proposed and they were married the following day on a beach in Cancun. A few months later, the couple took a 5-day houseboat trip to Lake Mead as a honeymoon. During the trip, they did as couples do and filmed parts of it. The hour-long tape was put in a safe at the couple's home. Enter electrician Rand Gautier, who was hired to do a renovation project at Pam and Tommy's house. Rand initially started off as a porn star, appearing in more than 70 adult films throughout the 90s. He eventually became an electrician and was hired by Tommy in 1995. 3 months into the job, Rand was upset that Pam and Tommy hadn't paid him. They felt that Rand's workmanship was shoddy. He claimed they owed him $20,000, but he got to the point where he was like, just let me take my tools and leave, and we'll just call it. But when Rand tried to get his tools, Tommy pointed a shotgun at him and allegedly said, get the fuck off my property, which absolutely sounds like a Tommy Lee thing.
Yes.
So Rand decides he wants revenge against Tommy. So he scopes out their house. He later admits he used a white fur rug to disguise himself as Pam and Tommy's dog to elude security cameras.
That's ridiculous.
I would like stills of that, please.
Yeah.
100%. In October 1995, just days before Halloween, Rand ended up stealing the safe from the couple's garage, believing that it contained Tommy's guns and Pamela's jewelry. When Rand got the safe open, he discovered it contained the tape filmed during Pam and Tommy's honeymoon. Years later, Rand said, quote, "It was cute. They're in love and a couple and they're just having fun with each other, and I think that's great. I'm jealous. I wish I had something like that." I mean, very sweet. Rand took the tape to a porn studio, a little less sweet, in North Hollywood, owned by a man named Milton Ingley. Rand and Milton then made copies of the tape before destroying the original. They tried to shop it around, but most places refused to touch it since they didn't have releases signed by Pam and Tommy. Louis Pereno, who ran an adult video production company called Arrow Productions and had ties to the New York mob, gave Milton $50,000 to distribute the tape and post it online. Louis was set to receive his initial loan back, plus interest, plus a cut of the sales. Tapes were then sold around Los Angeles, and when Tommy finally discovered the safe was taken, he allegedly sent members of the Hells Angels after Rand. In March 1996, Pam and Tommy filed a $10 million lawsuit to stop the distribution of the tape. The lawsuit included Penthouse, who by then had their own copy of the tape. The lawsuit against Penthouse was rejected after lawyers argued that since Pam and Tommy often spoke about their sex life to the media, that meant the couple forfeited their privacy rights.
Oh, this whole thing makes me crazy.
100%. I think we can agree absolute horse shit. Talking about it and seeing it are two completely different things. Milton and Rand started getting a lot of pressure from lawyers, the Hells Angels, and Louis, who was looking for a return on his investment. So Milton fled to Amsterdam, where he continued to sell the tape online. But as copycat websites started popping up, Rand and Milton's business started to slow down. To pay the money back that they owed Louis, Rand had to work as a collector for the mob, which, doesn't seem great. But the tape got into the hands of Seth Warshavsky. Well, it doesn't matter. He put it online, which led to a deal with Vivid Entertainment, who started selling the tape in stores in 1998. I don't want to get into Seth's background, but basically, he started by setting up a sex line when he was just 19 years old. And after grossing more than $60 million in the first few years, he just made the leap to internet porn in 1996. Soon his company had control of more than 3,000 porn sites, as well as a variety of celebrity sex tapes, including Bret Michaels and Kelsey Grammer. Who wants to see that? Who
Not
wants
together,
to see?
to be clear,
Well,
not
to be
together.
clear, yes, it was tapes featuring them separately. I don't want to see Frasier going at it.
No.
No, thank you.
Oh, baby, I hear the blues are calling.
He tossed her salad and scrambled eggs.
And scrambled those eggs. He sure did.
I did not think my knowledge of the Frasier theme song would ever come in handy on this show, but
Here we are.
always a surprise. So of course, when Pam and Tommy's tape became available, Seth's company jumped at the chance to distribute it. When later asked if he felt bad about what he'd done, Seth said, and I quote, "No, I don't feel like we've done anything negative. We've provided some really hot stories and some really hot content that there's been a huge demand for." Well, a huge demand doesn't make it right.
No.
If Pam and Tommy had released the video on their own, that's one thing. But to release it without their permission is gross. Seth also said, quote, "My mother's proud of me. I'm a successful businessman. Seth fled to Thailand in 2001 after the FBI and IRS started investigating allegations that Seth's company had been double and triple charging clients for their services. Yes, Seth, I bet your mother is incredibly proud.
Yeah.
Pam and Tommy successfully sued Seth for 1.5 million, but since he fled, they have not received that money and likely never will. Rand still works as an electrician and is also working on a book about the nature of magic and symbolism in religion. He has never been charged with any crime in connection with the stolen tape. Pam and Tommy Lee had two sons together, including Brandon in May 1996 and Dylan in December 1997. In February 1998, Tommy was arrested and charged with spousal abuse and child abuse. Pamela then filed for divorce, and the child abuse charges were dropped. 2 months later, Tommy pleaded no contest to spousal abuse and was sentenced to 6 months in jail, followed by 3 years probation and an order to stay at least 100 yards away from Pam. Pam and Tommy remained on and off again for years until he got engaged to Brittany Furlan in February 2018. Tommy and Brittany did get married in 2019. In 2022, Hulu released the series Pam and Tommy, starring Lily James and Sebastian Stan. A year later, Pam released her own documentary and memoir called Love Pamela. And one more thing about Miss Pamela Anderson before we move on. It involves her home improvement co star Tim Allen. According to Pamela's memoir, quote, on the first day of filming, I walked out of my dressing room and Tim was in the hallway in his robe. He opened his robe and flashed me quickly, completely naked underneath. Pamela said Tim told her it was only fair because he had seen her naked.
Oh,
I assume he was referring to Pamela's Playboy photos. Pamela appeared nude in Playboy 14 times and was on the cover 13. The first cover was in 1989, the last in 2016 for the Playboy's final nude edition. After allegedly flashing Pamela, Tim Allen said, quote, now we're even, which is incredibly gross. At the time, he was 37. She was 23.
ugh.
Tim, of course, denies this ever happened. He even went so far as to say, quote, she was a great coworker. She's a fun girl. Everybody loved her, but everybody at ABC is a little disappointed in her memory, put it that way. All of us at Disney and ABC, really. She's a good girl. First of all, Tim, at the time you made this comment, Pamela was an adult woman, not a girl. I don't like you referring to her as a good girl because it's condescending. Secondly, you don't speak for ABC or Disney. They might employ you, but you don't speak for their company. Because if there was video proof of the flashing incident, ABC would drop you in a heartbeat.
Yep.
And thirdly, to pull the parent, I'm not mad, I'm just disappointed, is pathetic and gross and further proof you shouldn't have done it because you were older and in a position of power over the young girl. And look, I'm more willing to believe Pamela than I am to believe Tim. Um, but I mean, it's basically his word against hers. But there is a home improvement blooper where Tim is wearing a kilt and he flashes Patricia Richardson like as a bit. Patricia said Tim had clothing underneath. Um, so was it just a one-time behavior to flash as a joke? Or did he flash Pamela, and it's just he took it too far? Who knows? Honestly, since we're talking about a comedian from the '80s, who made a career off misogynistic bits, I wouldn't be surprised if flashing was just, like, a thing he did because he thought it was funny.
Yeah.
Something else not surprising is the fact that Pamela wasn't the only one on set with issues with Tim Allen. What other issues were there? What sort of scandals lurk in Tim's closet? And is there any more fun home improvement trivia? We'll find out after the break.
You heard the lady. Grab another drink, hit the can, and we're going to be right back with more on the Scandal Home Improvement episode of True Crime and Cocktails. Right, clap two on three. One, two, three. Welcome back to another episode of True Crime and Cocktails. We're, of course, discussing Scandal Home Improvement. Before the break, we were talking about Pamela Anderson, and then there was a little illusion that perhaps there's some more things to come about Mr. Tim Allen. What comes
Yeah.
next?
Well, I mean, of all the things I teased before the break, you know I'm going to get right into some more fun facts
Of course.
because that's who I am. So, this is something I did not know until I was researching, and it made me laugh. So, in 1994, Home Improvement Power Tool Pursuit was released by Super Nintendo, or
Oh,
released
wow.
on the Super Nintendo, I should say. I have not played this game. Again, I until researching this, I didn't even know it existed. But apparently the game follows Tim as he goes on a quest to search for the new line of Binford tools, which were apparently stolen right before Tim was set to unveil them on the air. So the quest is not as easy as one may think. Tim has to battle mummies, robots, and dinosaurs to
Wow.
get his precious tools back. But don't worry, the Tim character is equipped with weapons to help on his quest, including, but not limited to, a chainsaw, a blowtorch, a hammer, and a nail gun.
Wow.
And in true super macho Tim Taylor fashion, the manual for the game consists solely of the message, quote, real men don't need instructions.
Oh, wow.
Because in the 90s, misogyny was hilarious.
Yeah.
Another fun fact, Debbie Dunning, who played Heidi, the character who kind of replaced Pamela Anderson's character Lisa, she dated Mike Piazza, which,
Shut up.
which is now the second time on this show that I have randomly mentioned him. I didn't expect to mention him once, let alone twice, but here we are. Apparently, Mike and Debbie dated for less than a year, and he just randomly broke up with her on Halloween in 1998. According to Mike's memoir, Debbie did not take it well. This is a quote from that memoir. There was screaming and crying, and then the tool time girl waffled my ass. I hadn't taken a punch like that in a long time.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I also love that that's just where I end it. I know nothing else about what happened to them. I think she is married, I believe. I don't know. Normally, I would absolutely go into if they're married or not now, to who, but I guess I was just more thrown by Mike Piazza randomly showing up.
Yeah.
So, a random fun fact about a home improvement actor. Jonathan Taylor Thomas allegedly turned down the Jason Biggs role in American Pie.
No way.
Can you imagine? But speaking of Mr. JTT himself, something I learned that I found absolutely horrifying. As we know, JTT voiced a young Simba in the
Yes.
Disney animated classic The Lion King. Apparently, to get him to an emotionally vulnerable place while recording the specific Mufasa death scene, a co-director used Jonathan's close relationship with his mother. The director said, well, since his mother was always there, I knew they must be close, so I used her as an example. He told JTT, who was 12 at the time, quote, think of how this would feel. You've just seen your mother fall into a river and now you found her washed up. Now, I can only imagine the horror stories that exist about how children can sometimes get treated on a set. And I'm sure in the grand scheme of things, this was nothing compared to some of those stories. It just It definitely explains why JTT walked away from Hollywood, because apparently he got so emotional in that moment that when they first started filming, he screamed "Mom" instead of the line when he says "Dad" when, Mufasa dies.
Right.
So it just felt very like, "Don't tell him to think of his mother. Oh, just picture that dead lion as your mom." It just feels again, it's not much, but it just felt I didn't like it, is my point.
No.
So at the beginning of Home Improvement's 8th season, JTT wanted out. He'd been working nonstop since he was 8. He wanted to take a step back and focus on school. Not to mention, he was an incredibly private person, and he had spent the past decade being an unwilling teen heartthrob. It was the combination of that pure little face and that gravelly little voice. Yeah, all of us girls were in a tizzy. We didn't know what to do. It's not his fault. It's just how he was made. So the poor kid was constantly hounded by press. He was on the cover of dozens of magazines, including Bop, 16, Tiger Beat, Teen Machine, Teen Beat, and my personal favorite, Disney Adventures.
Oh, those were great.
I love that because that was always a combination of a Disney cartoon character and a real person doing something together. Like when Patrick Stewart was on the cover in his Star Trek uniform, and a bunch of the rest of the Star Trek cast were actually just like random um, Disney characters.
Yes.
I think Daisy Duck was somebody. Like I remember her being there. I believe Beast from Beauty and the Beast was Worf.
Ah,
If I can remember that correctly. It doesn't matter. Pinocchio might have been there. Would that have been Data? Doesn't matter, Christy. The point is, God, this episode is like someone is like either I'm a dog and someone like a squirrel's running back and forth in here, or I'm a cat and someone's using like a laser pointer and my brain is all over the place. You know what I
I
mean?
love it.
So the home improvement writers decide that JTT's character Randy is going to go do an environmental study in Costa Rica so JTT can step back from the show and attempt to live a normal life. Tim Allen did not really approve of this decision. It caused a rift between the two of them, which apparently came to a head while filming the show's holiday episode. Things allegedly got so bad that JTT refused to come back for the series finale in May 1999.
Wow.
JTT denies that there was anything. He says he was actually just busy looking at prospective colleges at the time. He says it was just a simple scheduling conflict. I don't think we believe it.
No.
JTT ended up going to Harvard in 2000, where he studied philosophy and history. 2 years later, he went to the University of St. Andrews in Scotland, and eventually graduated from Columbia in 2010. I also think University of St. Andrews is is that where Kate and Will met?
Oh,
I mean, I can't get into that because that'll be 8 hours of me screaming about Kate Middleton. But the point is,
yeah.
for some reason, I thought recently that I had read that, but I could be wrong. Anyhow, so JTT has since shied away from acting. However, he did make a guest appearance on 4 episodes of Tim Allen's new show. He also directed 3
Hmm.
episodes. But without JTT on the show, Patricia Richardson decided she was not going to return for a 9th season, even though she was offered $25 million to do that one
Jesus.
season. It was then suggested that the show would simply kill the Jill character off and Tim would continue without her. And to that I say, there is no home improvement without Jill. But Tim refused to do it without her. He turned down their $50 million offer. So home improvement came to an end following their 8th season. The fact that they offered her half of what they offered him to do the show, get the fuck out. But while we're talking about Tim, let's get into the scandal skeletons in his closet. Aside from Home Improvement, Tim Allen is probably most well known for his roles as Santa in Disney's The Santa Claus, and as Christie's animated boyfriend, Buzz Lightyear, in the Toy Story franchise. Prior to that, Tim was a stand up comedian, and prior to that, he was a drug dealer.
Yes.
While attending Western Michigan University, Tim started selling drugs, and in October 1978, Tim was caught carrying 1.4 pounds of cocaine at the Kalamazoo Battle Creek International Airport. Since the state of Michigan had just passed a law that gave a life sentence to any conviction involving more than 650 grams, Tim immediately took a plea deal in which he agreed to rat out nearly 2 dozen other dealers. Tim pled guilty to drug trafficking and was sentenced to 3 to 7 years in prison. He was released in June 1981 after serving 2 years and 4 months. Tim then started doing stand up and even booked a Showtime special in 1990. The special caught the attention of executives at Disney who offered him movie roles, which Tim turned down. However, Tim convinced the executives to create a sitcom based around Tim's very specific manly man grunting style stand up. And that's how Home Improvement was born. During its run, Tim was arrested for drunk driving in May 1997. He was found doing 70 miles per hour in a 40 zone in Bloomfield Township, Michigan. His blood alcohol level at the time was 0.15.
Woof.
Tim said, quote, "I had 2 Miller Lights on the golf course, and while my wife was having her head attended to, somebody hit her in the head with a golf ball or a golf club, and she was bleeding. I went to the men's grill and I had a vodka and orange juice, and then we went up to dinner and I had 2 more, and that did it."
Yeah, that'll do it.
Yeah. Um,
Having
Also,
5 drinks and then driving, probably not a good idea.
yeah. Also, if your wife got hit in the head in some way that she needed medical attention, just go be with her.
Yeah.
You don't have to be like, "I'll be at the bar."
Yeah.
You know. Tim admitted he had been struggling with alcohol abuse since he was 10 years old, which he said was made worse after his father's death when Tim was just 11. He didn't contest the DUI charges and was sentenced to enter a rehab program in 1998. After Home Improvement ended, Tim wasn't exactly hard up for work, thanks to Toy Story and the Santa Claus. But he did a bunch of movies, including Galaxy Quest, Joe Somebody, Wild Hogs, Zoom, and Christmas with the Cranks. Then in 2011, Tim starred in the TV series Last Man Standing, which, according to IMDb, followed, quote, "a married father of three trying to maintain his manliness in a world increasingly dominated by women."
Oof.
Basically, it was Home Improvement, but with 3 daughters instead of 3 sons.
Right.
And before you think that maybe I'm being mean by saying it was basically a Home Improvement ripoff, Tim fully agrees with me. He said, quote, "It isn't rocket scientist, rocket scientist." I am mentally a mess. "It isn't rocket science what I'm doing. Instead of tools, it's sporting goods and guns. I come home to 4 women. Done." Like, so he gets it. He knows exactly I mean, Home Improvement was such a well-oiled machine. He's like, let's just do it again, but
Yeah.
slightly differently. It reminds me of an episode of Saturday Night Live where Terry Hatcher, who is dressed as David Spade, was talking about the movie Black Sheep, and she said, quote, "Maybe you saw it the first time when it was called Tommy Boy." That episode aired in 1996, and that line is still as fresh in my brain now as it was the moment it aired. My point is, the same joke can be made using Home Improvement and Last Man Standing. I'm not knocking the show. I'm just saying it was basically just another excuse for Tim to continue that shtick of
Oh,
his that was
absolutely.
so specific. Last Man Standing aired 194 episodes over 9 seasons before coming to an end in 2021. So we've discussed the head of the Taylor family household. it's time to move on to the oldest son, Brad, played by Zachary Ty Bryan. So after Home Improvement came to an end, Zachary continued working, appearing on TV shows like Touched by an Angel, Boston Public, The Outer Limits, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Smallville, and Veronica Mars. Zachary also had a small role in the Fast and the Furious Tokyo Drift, if you think I wasn't jazzed to randomly bring that up. And in 2009, he played the title character in the TV movie Thor Hammer of the Gods.
Huh.
Unfortunately, for Zachary and literally anyone associated with that film, it was not well received.
Yeah.
Um, as of this record, it has an IMDb rating of 2.8. The reviews are unkind at best. I've pulled a few quotes just as an example. Quote, waste of time. Another piece of putrid filth from sci fi. Use the hammer to smash the DVD. And
Come
my
on.
personal favorite, which this was the sole review, quote, what a turkey. The audience's harsh response made Zachary take a step back from acting and focus on producing. In fact, after that abysmal Thor showing, Zachary did not return to the small screen until 2022 with the series The Guardians of Justice Will Save You. But we're going to look at Zachary's life outside Hollywood. In 2007, Zachary married his high school sweetheart, Carly Matros, something along those lines. The couple had 4 children, including a set of twin daughters born in 2014, a daughter in 2016, and a son in March 2019. After 13 years of marriage, Zachary and Carly divorced in September 2020. Zachary posted on Instagram, quote, after 14 years as best friends, soulmates, partners, and then parents, it is an incredible journey, but together we've decided to turn the page and move on from our marriage. Woo. So that post continued for a while. And I would attempt to be moved by it, but it was the exact message that Army Hammer posted about his own divorce.
Like copy and pasted?
Copy and pasted.
Shut up.
I mean, to be fair, it wasn't exactly the same, because he had to change the amount of time they'd been married.
Okay.
But that's the only thing he changed was the amount of
No
years.
way.
Copy and pasted.
That's
Um,
wild.
And look, if you're looking for someone whose path you can follow, Army Hammer is not the choice.
Don't do it.
For more information on that, check out episode 28. Army Hammer, the story so far.
How was it
Episode
only
28.
28?
Were we ever that young?
No.
It's wild. Zachary did admit to copying and pasting Army's post. He said, quote, because I literally did not know what to say. He
Wow.
also said, well, I figured it was written by a publicist, so it wouldn't matter anyway. Mm-hmm. But I get it. Zachary was separating from his wife. He was likely going through an incredibly emotional time. So I should cut him some slack. But I won't. Because 16 days after that post, Zachary was arrested in Oregon after allegedly assaulting his new girlfriend, Johnny Faye Cartwright. According to the
Whoa.
Eugene Police Department, Zachary, quote, impeded her breathing and took her phone away so she couldn't call 911.
Oh my God.
Zachary was charged with strangulation, fourth-degree assault, menacing, coercion, harassment, and interfering while making a police report. After spending one night in jail, he was released on $8,500 bond and ordered to stay away from Johnny. Zachary claimed that Johnny strangled herself in an attempt to ruin his career.
Stop it.
Johnny claimed that Zachary pulled her hair, punched her face multiple times, and then strangled her. She also claimed that this was the second time he had been physically violent with her in the past month. You know, uh, before his separation with his wife was actually announced.
Oh boy.
In February 2021, Zachary pleaded guilty to charges of menacing and fourth-degree assault, and was sentenced to 3 years probation, ordered to participate in a violence intervention program, and ordered to have no contact whatsoever with Johnny. In April 2021, Johnny was arrested for assaulting 2 security guards at a bar after being denied entry due to extreme intoxication. Johnny allegedly hit the men in the face and kicked one in the head. She was charged with fourth-degree assault, criminal trespassing, and disorderly conduct. Johnny took a deal that dropped some of the charges, and she pleaded guilty to the assault charge and was sentenced to 2 years probation and 10 days in jail. As of this record, Zachary and Johnny are still together.
Okay.
In November 2021, just 13 months after his initial assault charge against her, Zachary announced that they were engaged. They welcomed a daughter in the spring of 2022, and then they had a set of twins in May 2023. And yes, for the sake of giving you a quick tally, that means Zachary is now a father of 7,
Wowzer.
including 2 sets of twins, which I find wild.
Yeah.
But we're not quite done with him yet. So in July 2023, Zachary was arrested for domestic charges against Johnny. He was charged with 2 counts of fourth degree assault, third degree robbery, and a misdemeanor for harassment. The arrest allegedly occurred after the second violent incident in the span of 6 days. Zachary was released on bail and ordered to refrain from drinking, to stay away from any drinking establishments, and he had to use a breathalyzer twice a day so they could make sure he was, doing what he was supposed to. But in September, his bail was revoked when it was discovered he went on a drinking binge while wearing an ankle monitor.
Oh boy.
Maybe not the move. While he was originally sentenced to about 20 months in jail, he was released after a week. And speaking of arrests, Zachary Ty Bryan has been arrested for DUIs at least 5 times. The first time was in 2004 when he was caught driving 100 miles an hour down the Glendale Freeway in Los Angeles. Zachary was also arrested while driving under the influence in 2007, 2017, 2020, and most recently, February 2024. Didn't see that one coming. It's like he knew I was going to talk about him.
Yeah.
Continuing with Zachary's scandals, in 2023, a man named Cameron Moore filed a lawsuit against Zachary, claiming Zachary was in breach of contract. According to Cameron, Zachary had failed to return the $60,000 investment that Cameron had made in the 2021 movie Warning, which stars Thomas Jane, Alice Eve, Patrick Schwarzenegger, Annabelle Wallace, and Rupert Everett, among others. Cameron had signed a contract with Zachary, which would give Cameron a portion of the movie's profits. It turns out the contract that Cameron signed was allegedly copy and pasted from a contract Zachary had with the film's producers. Since Zachary didn't bother responding to the lawsuit, the judge found in Cameron's favor, and Zachary is ordered to pay $109,000. Zachary claims that he's in the process of complying. He just hasn't yet. And
So
speaking of
hold on
law,
a second here.
yeah,
Sorry. I know I would normally save this till the end, but I got to
yeah,
jump in on this right away because I am buzzing.
please do.
So that money, we're assuming from, and I may have cut you off too soon.
Did not go to the movie.
Fuck me.
I can't even tell if he was involved in that movie at all.
That's fraud. That's not just like that's serious. That's like high level white collar crime.
Yep.
Wowzer.
Yeah.
Okay. Copying pasting a contract and giving it to someone to have them give you money to finance a movie that you're not actually in the position to do that's a problem. Wowzer.
Welcome to the part of the reason that this
Yeah.
episode exists. Look, no,
Yeah.
did I get excited when I found extra stuff like that for this episode? And it wasn't just Tim Allen, who I knew going into it.
Yeah.
Yeah, overjoyed. Again, greatest time of my life.
I love it.
So, speaking of lawsuits, because I'm not done with Zach yet.
Wow.
In 2017, Some guys founded an ag tech startup company called Producers Market. Its purpose was to focus on farmers and the global food chain by removing the middlemen so they could empower farmers. At one point, the people behind the company looked into selling tokens, which were kind of like shares in the company, but the idea just kind of didn't pan out. However, in March 2021, they discovered that Zachary Ty Bryan had been selling fake tokens to people. Yeah.
How is it? Okay, I gotta stop.
Yeah.
I'm asking questions that you're probably about to tell me, but like, how is
Uh,
this man not in prison?
it's
That's a huge crime.
he assaulted the same woman multiple times in a small span, and they were like, "Meh, instead of that 20 months, do a week. You'll be fine. You don't have a history of it." History of it.
It
Yeah,
does.
there's so many things
But you can't sell. This is shades of is I'm blanking on his name, the Backstreet Boys NSYNC manager we did the
Lou
episode on.
Pearlman.
Lou Pearlman, he was doing shit like that.
Yep.
That's wild.
Again, you click on an episode home improvement and you're like, what is Christy on now? She's on her bullshit. This is crazy. She's just gonna randomly talk about everything else but, and then I give you this shit and you're like,
Hell
this
yeah.
is why we're here. Yeah.
Exactly.
So there we go. So I honestly don't even know how Zachary snuck his way in on this one, but allegedly he convinced friends and various contacts to give him thousands of dollars in exchange for this company's tokens. Unfortunately, none of these people realized that they were getting fake tokens. How did he pull this off? Apparently, by lying and acting like he was a much bigger deal than he really was. He told people he brought former NFL quarterback Tom Brady in as an investor for this company. And a rep for Tom Brady said that yes, they received a phone call from Producers Market, but they never responded. So they never went further than that. But Zachary used his name to make this investment seem enticing. And the more famous people you can claim are involved, the more people are going to be like, oh, well, if he's investing, I should get in on the ground floor.
Right.
Well, according to a friend of Zachary's, quote, he would be dating someone, a random girl he met on Bumble or Tinder, and he would save their name in his phone as someone famous. So when they'd call him, it would pop up as like Angelina Jolie.
Stop.
I mean, gross. Not just to use random women as a way to get clout and money from people, but also since it seems Zachary was married or in a relationship at the time he was doing this. And Zachary didn't just use these random girls from dating apps as fake celebrity contacts. He also took money from them. One girl met Zachary on Bumble in February 2021. Uh, he convinced her to transfer him $5,000 that she believed was giving her 50,000 tokens in this company. The girl
Jesus.
had just turned 21.
Oh.
And so she borrowed money from her siblings to be able to make this work. Zachary was 39 at the time, by the way, which to me makes him even more of a predator to go after someone so young, clearly just trying to get her money. Also, at the time, he would have been with his now wife or now fiance, because I don't think they've actually officially gotten married yet. He would have been with his fiance, Johnny, at that point. So he was then specifically on dating apps just to meet women to use them for money? Is that what I'm
That's
understanding?
so gross.
Through this scheme, Zachary is, oh, to be clear, Zachary is adamant this was not a scam. I don't know how he figures it wasn't, but he managed to get about $50,000 from people in exchange for fake tokens. A spokesperson for Producers Market said, quote, Mr. Bryan misrepresented our company without our knowledge, participation, or permission. When we found out, we immediately issued a cease and desist demand to him. This activity is unacceptable and not a reflection of our mission to support the well being of farmers and our food systems. A lawsuit was filed against Zachary in June 2023, so we're still waiting to see how that plays out. But I'd love for these investors to get their money back, but I know that doesn't really happen. So, you know. And one last scandal for Zachary. But this time it appears he may be the victim in this story.
Oh,
Around the time that he was transitioning out of acting, he was a co owner of a sports bar in Hollywood called Big Wang's.
I know Big Wangs.
Well, there you go. Then it's proof that that name is serious.
It is serious. I
So,
know Big Wangs.
yeah.
Yeah.
I, I just want to use that clip of you saying, I know Big
I know Big
Wang's.
Wangs.
I like that a lot. Apparently, Zachary learned that two of his business partners had allegedly been siphoning money from the business and using the company credit card for lavish vacations, luxury sports cars, and a house. So Zachary claims that the partners used 750,000 membership points from the card and that some of the stolen money was used to open a competing restaurant.
Wow.
Unfortunately, there is no public information as to how they settled this dispute. The other owners did go on to open at least two more locations without Zachary. From the best I can tell, at least one has shut down since then. I
Mhm.
don't know if there are currently any Big Wangs in Los Angeles. I've said what I've said.
You know what? You'd think there'd be more Big Wangs than there are. It's just that there's so few Big Wangs in a place where you'd expect many Big Wangs.
Thank you so much.
Well, you'll love, I can speak on this.
Thank God. Mhm.
I think I'd have to double check. I should double check if I'm saying this, but I believe the Big Wangs in Hollywood did close.
Sure.
And then there was a Big Wangs North Hollywood that I thought also closed. It did. It
Mhm.
did. Um, Let me see how many locations still exist. I would go to Big Wangs in North Hollywood to watch Blue Jays games.
Hey, I
Yeah.
like
Ooh,
that.
it's
The am
appearing that that's the only Big Wangs that was left, so I do think that they're all closed.
Oh, so no Big Wangs in Los Angeles.
I know you may have thought there would be Big Wangs in Los Angeles, but currently there are no Big Wangs in Los Angeles.
And at this moment, if somebody's like, "God, is this what it's always like?" Yes. Just yes.
This is what you're
This
signing up for,
this is what you're
folks.
signing up for. It does remind me, a bit that, Kristen Schaal, who I love,
Yes.
um, did a bit that, she's like, "My standards for men have gotten so low, I only look for one thing. I just want a man with a great sense of humor about his enormous cock." And that is one of the funniest things I've ever heard because I didn't see it coming.
Yeah.
It's just, shout out Kristen Shaw. She doesn't listen to this, but the point is,
You never know.
you know, I have a tattoo of a character she played from a cartoon on my body. So,
That's
you know,
beautiful.
Gravity Falls, shout out. Fucking love that show. So we've gone through scandals featuring the Taylor's oldest son. Now we're going to move on to the youngest son, Mark, played by Taryn Noah Smith. Now, Taryn's troubles all seemed to start around the time that Home Improvement came to an end. On April 27th, 2001, Taryn married a woman named Heidi Van Pelt. The wedding took place less than 3 weeks after Taryn's 17th birthday. And if you're getting married, if getting married at 17 isn't shocking enough to some people, the bride at the time was less than 3 months away from turning 33.
Okay.
I've said something similar before. And so I'm going to say it again, though. A person in their 30s should never be in a sexual relationship with a teenager. He's not an old soul. You're just a predator, ma'am.
Yeah.
And that's what's worse. They actually met in 1998. at a raw food dinner party where Heidi was 30 and Taryn was 14.
No.
But according to Heidi, she was in a relationship at the time, so they just remained friends.
Oh,
That was your only reason for not dating a 14-year-old?
also, no
Really?
30-year-old needs to be friends with a 14-year-old.
No.
Doesn't matter any of the
Nope.
genders any which way.
Nope.
Not necessary.
100%.
Inappropriate.
Nope. Never should happen. It's just gross that she was like, "Oh, we can't be together because I'm off the market." Dating him should never have been an option. He was a child. Heidi and Taryn reunited at some point in 2000, and Heidi even moved in with Taryn and his family because he was a child and still lived with his parents. Um, but apparently, Taryn lied to his parents about Heidi's age, and she managed to live with the family for 2 months until they discovered a speeding ticket in her name that listed her actual age.
Wowzer.
Thing is, Taryn says he lied and said that Heidi was only 9 years older than him, which isn't a lot better when we're talking about a 16-year-old boy.
No.
Apparently, Taryn's parents were okay with a 9-year difference. And when they learned it was actually a 16-year difference, they kicked Heidi out. But as impulsive teenagers are wont to do, Taryn went with her. They
Right.
moved to Lawrence, Kansas. Shout out Sam and Dean Winchester.
Thank you.
And in April, Taryn and Heidi were secretly married at a strip club. A club that I remind you, Taryn was not even legally allowed to be in
Oh my
at the
god.
time of the wedding. How was the wedding even legal? I would almost be charmed by the fact that their wedding rings were mood rings, if it wasn't for the fact that this relationship was so incredibly illegal. After Heidi's encouragement, Taryn sued his parents and started accusing them of misappropriating the money he made while on home improvement. His
Mhm.
parents pointed out that all the money he made was actually put into a trust fund, but Taryn wasn't able to access it until he was 18. And since Taryn didn't have access to the trust fund, he and Heidi kind of spent the beginning of their marriage completely broke. Since Heidi was a vegan chef, they started running a vegan restaurant out of their own house on random nights of the week, which also feels not illegal. Like, not like a legal thing to do.
It is not legal. No.
Um, oh, and at some point during their marriage, they had a son named Nolan Eric. That is all the information I can find on that kid. To be honest, he's an innocent in all of this, so I'm
Mhm.
willing to move on. He exists, we move on. Once the trust fund money came through, they invested it in the stock market and in 2005 created their own vegan cheese company called Play Food. Taryn said he paid for the entire project, including the money to build the warehouse where the food was stored. They claimed their cheese was just as good as traditional cheese. Even without trying, I beg to differ. So, it's so hard to be regular cheese. Like, vegan? No,
I've eaten a lot of vegan cheese. I've eaten a lot of vegan cheese. It
yeah,
it is its own thing. It is nothing
there
like
it
real
is.
cheese,
There it
in
is.
my
See,
opinion.
this is what we needed was an actual
I don't
opinion,
right, and I'm going to
someone
say
who's
this.
tried it.
Do I think it's universally bad? Not at all. Not at all. It's its own thing to me.
Of course.
Yeah.
So, shockingly, Heidi and Taryn both filed for divorce in February 2007. Heidi then moved to Missouri, where she ran the Play Food company with her mother. According to Taryn, Heidi started to fight with the staff. She fired her mother from the company and then tried to make her new boyfriend the general manager.
Oh
At the
god.
time, Taryn said they were not only in legal battles over their divorce, but also over control over Play Food. He claims that he had to get a restraining order to stop Heidi from transferring assets from Playfood to another company that she had created. The divorce was bitter at best. Heidi accused Taryn of cheating and said she couldn't handle his constant partying. Taryn accused Heidi of stealing from him, saying that she took profits from their restaurant and kept them for herself. Taryn claimed that since he bankrolled Play Food from the start, that it belonged to him. But Heidi claimed that since the vegan cheese was her idea, it was therefore her intellectual property and her company. They bickered back and forth about the company until it went out of business in 2009. Their divorce was finalized soon after. In 2010, Heidi and her new boyfriend opened a vegan restaurant called Food. The couple eventually got married and had a child named Vox. Soon after, they divorced. Heidi then decided to close the restaurant after 7 years. She did so without consulting her ex husband, who was her business partner. But maybe she only really closed the business because the staff said Heidi was increasingly difficult to work with. They claimed she would spout conspiracy theories, and she often made remarks that were anti trans and anti immigrant.
Oh,
So,
woof.
piece of shit. After the divorce, Taryn had issues with the couple's house. Squatters took the place over and caused irreparable damage. The bank eventually foreclosed on the property, and things just kind of spiraled for Taryn, who was arrested in Los Angeles in February 2012 for drinking or for driving under the influence. And since hash was found in his car at the time, Taryn was charged with a DUI and drug possession. He pled no contest to the DUI and guilty to the drug possession. He was sentenced to 3 years probation and ordered to attend a 12-hour DUI program and a 6-month drug diversion program. Thankfully, since then, things have turned around for Taryn. He reunited with his parents. He wrote a book with his mother. It's called Stardom Happens. It was released in 2016 and was written to help families of children actors navigate Hollywood as best they can. In 2022, Taryn started working for SpaceX as an integration technician. Yes, SpaceX, as in the one of Elon Musk's businesses. No, I don't have time to get into Elon Musk and his scandals. That's another day.
Oh,
This is
yeah.
not me mentioning him so I can offshoot. I don't have time. Um, but just when you think I'm done with the cast, I have two more scandals that involve people who were very briefly on the show, but briefly still counts. Tom Wopat, best known as Luke Duke on The Dukes of Hazzard, played a character called Ian on 2 episodes of Home Improvement. 20 years after that appearance in July 2018, Tom Wopat pled guilty to inappropriately touching 2 women who co starred with him in a production of 42nd Street in Massachusetts. One of the victims was 16 at the time of the incident.
Mm.
Allegedly, Tom told the teenager, quote, "I'm a creepy old man. You're really talented and really cute." Tom, who was 66 at the time, was arrested and charged with indecent assault and battery. At the time of his arrest, he was also charged with cocaine possession. At first, Tom denied it ever happened, and then he took a plea deal and blamed his substance abuse problem. Tom was sentenced to a year probation, and for accepting the plea deal, the drug charge was dropped. And even though absolutely no one asked, Blanche was always more of a Bowduke kind of girl. Our final scandal touched celebrity of the day is Drake Bell.
Mm.
Best known for his role in the Nickelodeon show Drake and Josh. His very first TV appearance was on a 1994 episode of Home Improvement. He played a character called Little Pete. He was 5 years old at the time of that appearance. In August 2020, Melissa Langenfeld publicly accused Drake of verbal and physical abuse during their relationship from August 2006 to February 2009. He denied the accusations. Then in June 2021, Drake was charged with attempted child endangerment and disseminating harmful material to juveniles following an incident from 2017. The victim, who met Drake online, accused him of grooming her from the age of 12 before allegedly turning their conversations blatantly sexual around the time she turned 15. The
Woof.
victim said they exchanged explicit photos, and then Drake sexually abused her when she attended one of his concerts in 2017 in Cleveland. The victim was 15 at the time. Drake was 31.
Oof.
The victim referred to Drake as the epitome of evil. He, of course, denies any wrongdoing. He took a plea deal and pled guilty to both charges. He was sentenced to 2 years probation, 200 hours of community service, and was prohibited from contacting the victim. Then in April 2023, Drake was reported missing. It was later said, following an argument with his wife, Drake stormed out and went to a hotel in Orlando where he attempted to hang himself. He was found shortly after, and his wife filed for divorce and requested full custody of their child. Is this possibly the most random episode we've ever done? Yeah. And I loved every single ounce of chaos. Reporting for this chaos, I'm Christy Oxborrow.
Well, I've got a lot of thoughts because this was GD gold. So go hit the can again, grab one more drink, and we'll be back with our final thoughts on the Scandal Home Improvement episode of True Crime and Cocktails. On three. 1, 2, 3. Welcome back to this episode of True Crime and Cocktails. We're, of course, discussing Scandal Home Improvement. What a gift this was. This whole thing. This whole dang thing. I just wrote down first JTT reference 30 seconds in. Just wanted to bring that back. I really enjoyed that. Okay. The original name of Tool Time was Hammer Time, and then the MC Hammer. Like, that is wild. It also could totally happen because the writers, when you're writing a script for a pilot, you're writing it so far in advance. It's more than plausible they came up with this long before that song came out. And then it was like, well, so much for that. Got to change that.
I also like that they thought Hammer Time was good.
It's even funnier. Tool Time is like, at least it's got some alliteration, right? Like,
and it makes sense. Yeah.
Right. Hammer Time, I'm going to be honest, it sounds like intercourse. I'm being honest.
I cannot wait to hit on my husband and be like, you ready for Hammer Time? And him to be like, what are you talking about?
You're right. I should really just send a text that says, stop. Hammer Time? Question mark. When you get home, Hammer Time?
Oh my God. Please. This is, stop. Hammer Time? Like, the question of Hammer Time. That's, well, now, again, this episode just keeps being my favorite.
Yeah.
Like, it just naturally has happened that way.
Now I'm thinking I should text that to my boyfriend and just see what his response is, and then create a video along with this clip and then his text response screen grabs. That's the kind of shenanigans.
You're a producer.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I really am. That's the kind of shenanigans he would like, though. You know what I mean?
Of course. Well, he's just a yes and. He'll be like, yep. And just like rolls with it, plays with it. Like,
Like the video I made where I was talking about egg salad. It's one of my favorite. It really encapsulates him as a human because he tried so hard to be like, what does this mean? There's something I'm missing.
Yeah.
And then eventually it was just like, what the fuck? It was very charming. Okay. Now, again, this staff of 200 people, I'm going to go back to that for a second because I'm going to say words that, by the way, listeners, don't expect us to follow through on this. Do not. Should we try and come up with a list of what all of those 200 people were doing? Like chef, pastry chef, gardener, assistant gardener. Like, could we get to 200?
I would like to try in my spare time, 100%. I'm writing that down. I also want you to know, you said chef, and in my head, I went, that's who would make the sandwiches. Like, there was no part of me that thought of the word chef. I just immediately was like, sandwich maker. I don't eat this many sandwiches. I barely eat a sandwich.
Yeah, I would say you're low on the sandwich spectrum.
I am.
Other
I very
than
much am.
Your favorite sandwich, which of course is a cheeseburger.
It is.
Still a sandwich.
It is.
As is a hot dog
with stuff in the middle. Yep.
Yeah.
It is what it is. But yeah,
Maybe
the fact that I
that
never once thought of chef.
There's part of me that's like, do we do it on Patreon in an episode in real time? Can we see how many we can get to?
Yes. Yeah. Do we need some sort of like, oh my God, well, guess what? I've already got an easel and a whiteboard.
Here we go.
I'm not fitting 200 on that. I'll have
So
multiple
earnest.
whiteboards.
I'm not been doing around that. You've seen the size of my whiteboard. Just let me get out the easel.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Well, here
Look,
we go.
don't hold us to it, folks, because we come up with a lot of great ideas that we don't have the time to follow through on, but we might.
Yeah.
Never say never. Um, okay. The other thing I just wanted to add to the Pam and Tommy story, because I know way too much
Please.
about this because I've watched the
Please.
documentary, read the book, and of course, I'm just a Pamela Anderson enthusiast. Shout out Pam Anderson. What an icon. What a beauty. What a story of resilience. And Canadian.
Yes.
God bless her.
Oh, yeah.
The one detail that I wanted to add was they had met at that party. All
Yes.
of which Christy said was correct. I'm just adding in a little bit of this is my flavor flav. I'm adding some color commentary. They met at that party and then reconnected. And he asked her out. I believe he asked her out, and she said, "No, I have to go to Mexico for work." And he was like, "Great, I'll be there." And she was like, "I'm sorry, what?" And he's like, "I'll be there." She was like, "No, you can't come. Like, what are you talking about?"
Mhm.
And he showed up, found where she was somehow, showed up, and they got married 3 days later.
Wow.
Yeah.
Ah. Well, I love that tidbit.
Borderline stalker activity, behavior, whatever you want to call it. But
Yeah,
not even
but if
borderline.
Bryan Adams tried that on me in the '90s, I would have been jazzed.
I guess you can't stalk the willing.
Oh, yeah,
Oh my
yeah,
god.
it's not stalking when I send him my contact info and where I'll be.
Yeah, if you're dropping a pin, guess what?
Yeah. No.
Yeah. Um, yeah, that whole story, by the way, and look, I could just rant for like 2 hours about how much the Pam and Tommy story, the sex tape scandal, like upsets me because again,
Sure.
didn't really impact Tommy Lee's
Oh,
life
I
at
know.
all, and it destroyed Pamela's career, no matter how you look at it. And by the way, I just have to say, it goes without saying, but just because a woman chooses to pose for Playboy, that does not mean that therefore her private sex tape deserves to be put into public. The fact that that was literally the defense, that it was like, well,
Wow.
you're naked in Playboy, so therefore you have no right over the naked videos is
No.
such a it makes my brain hurt because I'm like, if the how can we not see that these are two separate things? It was stolen property. And by the way, when they talk about the tape, so little of that tape was even them having sex. It was them like commemorating their honeymoon. Like Rand was saying, it's true. There's so much of the tape that's just them being cute and loving and whatever. And by the way, it's their own prerogative to make a sex tape that they kept in a safe. That's their own prerogative. It wasn't like
100%.
they were like, "Ooh, I'm going to make a sex tape, copy it onto a VHS tape and accidentally leave it in someone's home," where you could say, "Well, you have
Sure.
some culpability." There's no culpability here. It wasn't on a device. If we put a sex tape, if we film ourselves naked on our cell phones, we all know that there is a possibility that somehow it's going to go digitally from your phone to somewhere else,
Mhm.
potentially without your intention.
Yeah.
Does that make me think that therefore you deserve to have your images shared? Absolutely not.
No.
My point just is this was a different time. This wasn't like there was any risk with what they were doing. It was their private videotape that they kept in a safe. And that's the thing that just grinds me so hard was the fact that they were basically told, you deserve this. You have no rights to your own image that was stolen. Get
Oh,
out
it's
of town.
gross. It's
It's so
so
disgusting.
gross.
And the fact also that Tim Allen tries to basically gaslight her, saying everyone's disappointed in her memory.
Oh.
Pamela Anderson has zero reason to make that story up. And by the way, she did leave that show eventually.
Yep.
She left. So it would also suggest to me that perhaps she wasn't 100% comfortable there. The statement, like, now we're even since I've seen you naked, is so disgusting. And by the way,
Mhm.
does not seem at all out of the realm of possibility.
Mhm.
Not at all. Um, yeah, I can't. I can't with any of that. Uh, Also, okay, so we're talking about Home Improvement Power Tool Pursuit, the Super Nintendo game. The manual simply said, real men don't need instructions." And you brought up at that time a misogyny, which is of course very valid. I also want to bring up, and this is something that I've seen some clips of different Esther Perel and people talking about recently, and it's this concept. that I think what some people forget when we're having conversations about the patriarchy is that the patriarchy affects everybody, not just women.
Right.
The way that the patriarchy has programmed men into what they believe a real man, quote unquote, is supposed to do, all of that stuff, it all feeds the rest of it. The only reason misogyny can exist is because the patriarchy is also influencing, controlling, and programming men into believing incorrectly what their potential role, purpose, value is in life.
Yep.
So I think it's just also, it's an interesting part of the discussion that I feel like we haven't had a lot for no real reason. But it was one of those moments where I was like, think about that as a child. Think about if you're a little boy and you open up that manual that says real men don't need instructions. What is the messaging that you're getting there? I mean, it's very literal. But again, that's patriarchy. That's patriarchy, which again controls all of us. It creates all of this dynamic, obviously, for women and also for men, which again, this is why it's so important to have these conversations because we got to change it.
Yeah.
We got to change it for other generations if that's possible. Jonathan Taylor Thomas in the Jason Biggs role in American Pie is the most insane thing I've ever heard. I think he was too cute.
Oh, 100%. I
Not
think
that
that
the, not
they
that
were
Jason Biggs isn't cute. Jason Biggs is cute, but it's just different. He's just like a little goofier to me.
oh, yeah. I absolutely think that they were going for like well, that will be extra shocking. And that they were
Right.
like, "Hey, guess what, JTT? You're sick of being considered like young kid all the time. Guess what?
Right.
It's time. We're gonna put you in a role. No one's gonna see you as that way again." But it's like that's also not a Jonathan Taylor Thomas role.
He would to me, he makes more sense being cast as Stifler,
Oh, sure.
especially if you're wanting to go against that, like, good little boy type. Cat Stifler makes more sense because Stifler can be super cute and confident. The whole thing about the Jason Biggs role is that he's, like, not confident with women, and at that time, certainly, like, Jonathan Taylor Thomas was synonymous with being the biggest teen heartthrob possibly ever. At that
Yeah,
time, I'm not saying that that's don't come for me, people. There's other heartthrobs. But you know what I'm saying? Like, it's like, to
yeah.
me, I'm not gonna buy that he has a hard time with girls.
No,
It's bizarre casting.
no, I would have married him if he had just walked up to me on a playground when I was 12 and he was like, "Hey, someday we should get married." I'd be like, "It's already in my schedule. Like, why are we even talking about this?" Like, yeah, there's no
Yeah.
way he would have struggled.
No.
Like,
And listen, that's also then we can get back into the conversation about patriarchy and what that means and all of the above and that our perceptions and that he also could have insecurities and we shouldn't perceive him to be one way because he looks one way. And I hear all of that. But we're also just talking about like given the framework of how the world worked at the time the American Pie movies came out, this is what the perception to me would have been.
yeah.
Tim Allen. Now here's the thing. And I think we may have talked about this on the show once before, but the fact that he was a drug dealer and he made the deal by ratting out others, I am
Oh,
shocked that this man went on to become so intensely famous and that no one has ever come for him. And listen, maybe they have. Maybe in his millions and millions of dollars, he's paid people off over the years. Who knows? But you and I both know that, like, the mob. Oh, someone's coming to my door. This is really not the time.
officer is gonna get all upset about it.
It was just the mailman being his beside herself.
Of course she is.
Thank you.
It's
Okay,
her job.
it is. But I am just shocked that like no one from the mob has had him killed at this point because I'm assuming there must be people that he was ratting out that could have been in some way working for the mob. Well, it always comes
Sure.
back to the mob for us. It's just wild to
Always.
me. It's wild to me that the only way I can wrap my head around it is that he has been paying people off for years because if you're
Oh,
ratting
sure.
out all of those people and then you become wildly, wildly famous, they've got to be coming after you.
especially when the majority of that wild fame is family friendly.
Yeah,
Buzz Lightyear and Santa? I mean, I may sexualize Buzz Lightyear and make him not family friendly, but
sure.
Buzz Lightyear and fucking Santa Claus? How is that? Don't get me wrong. He is one of the best to ever play Santa. I don't
Of
know why I
course.
like him in that role, but it's shocking to me, given his background, how far he's gone. It's just shocking to me.
It is interesting to me that this information I don't think necessarily came out. I'm curious if he talked about his jail time when he was doing his stand-up. 'Cause it's wild to me that they created a show around him and kind of his persona for
Sure.
ABC, which of course at the time I don't think was owned by Disney, but it is now. And you're right, and then he's gone on to do so many family-friendly, children's geared things. It's interesting to me that this kind of past has not come to bite him more. I guess
Right?
maybe that's the privilege of being a straight white man.
White
I mean, I
man.
don't know.
Yeah.
Also Patricia, Richardson being offered half the money that he is just the tale as old as time, song as old as rhyme in Hollywood.
Oh, I know.
Eat the patriarchy with a side of fries. Uh, okay. I don't even know how to get into the Zachary Ty Bryan stuff because I'm so blown away by it. It's so wild to me, the amount of fraud that this man has committed. I have to believe now that this lawsuit has been filed, like he could get into like he could do years of prison time. These are big crimes. It's wild. And then the other thing I have to say too, he and, Johnny, his girlfriend slash eventual, fiance, they got together. The police are getting called. There's these assault charges. They stay together. Listen, there's a lot of dynamic. There's a lot of things that happen. I'm not faulting her for staying. That is not uncommon in terms of domestic violence
Right.
situations. To me, that doesn't discredit her in terms of saying these things aren't true because she stayed. We know that statistically speaking, that is absolutely not a fact. I think the thing that is very tragic to me is that then they went on to have 3 children because they were in such an obviously toxic dynamic, for so long, and now you've brought children into that toxic dynamic, which none of them asked for or deserve. That to me is just a tragedy, because then eventually the police were getting called again, so now it's like I mean, again, we hear about it a lot, but it breaks my heart for those kids. Um, him mining dating apps for girls to try and scam, unbelievable, this guy. The fact also that he would save their names as famous people, which he probably also did just so that he could lay his phone down if he's in a meeting or something in person, and then people can see that this famous person is allegedly calling him.
Right?
Gross,
As though
gross.
Angelina Jolie would ever
Come on,
entertain as what's she gonna be like, "You know what? I loved Home Improvement. I'm gonna try and meet the oldest son." Get out.
get
Like,
out.
they're not the same universe, like, they aren't moving in the same circles.
No,
Brad.
Brad. Um, I can't believe once again that he is a co-owner of Big Wangs. This really hit home for me. I just hope, listen, if he's been scamming people, especially young women, like the 21-year-old you were talking about when he was like 39 and he took 5K from her, I would like to see some justice for that. I hope again that people don't back down and that there's if he is guilty, which it sounds like he is, I hope something comes of that because those crimes are serious, very serious, and really also speaks to, like, such a mindset, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, then just when I thought my jaw couldn't hit the floor any larger, you dropped to me that Taryn Noah Smith got married at 17 to someone who was about to turn 33. This is wild. Um, the fact that they were married at a strip club with mood rings, this is again, all of this is so wild. So they married in 2001, so they were together 6 years married.
Yeah.
Started this company together, of course, that got messy, and listen, I mean, I don't know, you gotta really You gotta choose your business partners carefully, hence why my
Sure.
business partner is on this Zoom with me. It's
What?
like
I don't
that's
know
a
why
wild
I
I
punch
liked
the
it.
air a lot when I'm happy lately.
I like
I
it a
blame
lot.
the hockey.
But you know what I mean? Like, listen, this isn't me giving an announcement like trust no one, but there's also me that's like, you just make sure you really trust the people you go into business with, because that's that's tough. It's tough.
Yeah.
Because
I
again, now
mean,
that it was, I'm sure, all his money. I don't think
yeah,
that he's lying about that, to be honest. Like, we know he had this giant trust fund. We knew that he could access it when he was 18. Then they immediately started this company. Now, who knows the ins and outs of what is true and what is false in terms of who was taking what and doing what and all of the above. At the end of the day, the point is that I'm certain that he financed the company, and I'm certain that then it became a massive issue between the two of them after they
yeah.
divorced. Straight up.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the fact that, as soon as they got married, she was like, "Your parents are screwing you over. You should try for your trust fund.
Yeah.
Go for them for money." And it's like, "Okay, calm down.
Yeah.
Like, he's gonna get his trust fund in a year." And she was like, "No, you should really push it."
Well, I mean, she had met him when he was 14, so at this point, I'm sure she was just getting impatient. Takes a while
Oh,
to
yeah.
she's put in so much grooming time at that point.
Yeah.
This DUI in 2012, the fact that he also was charged with drug possession because he had hash in the car. Here's just what I want to say. Who's smoking hash in 2012? I mean, I guess it's the drug that time forgot. I forgot about hash. You know what I mean? Like, I just never think about like what the kids are doing in the 2000s. I never think of hash. Does not come to mind. Is this 1975 Hollywood? No. So therefore, are we doing hash? Like,
I
I'm
just
blown
want you
away
to
by
know
it.
I've written down it's the drug that time forgot. Um, look, when I hear the word hash, I'm like, we talking like potatoes and like
Yeah.
I'm talking breakfast foods.
Listen, the caterers on my show, they make a great morning chicken hash. That's what's on my mind
Hey.
too.
Oh yeah.
On my mind too. They serve it with poached eggs and hollandaise, and let me tell you a little something, it's everything you
Oh,
want it to be. Yeah.
I
Shout out
love a
Humble
yolk.
Bird Catering for no good reason. Excuse me, Humble Pie Catering for no good reason other than the fact that they make good food.
I like
Um,
that.
yeah, that just made me laugh. Like, I was like, "Huh, okay, hash." Again, I wouldn't even yeah, I would never expect anyone to be smoking hash ever, but I mean, to each his own. Um, okay, of course, this story about Tom Wopat, disgusting. And then of course, yeah, Drake Bell, what a mess. What a
Oh yeah.
horrific mess. Um, listen, when we started this episode, I was jazzed. I was delighted. I was invested. And I'll
Yeah.
say it by the end of this, I think it's one of your best. That second act of information floored me. Not that the first act wasn't great, of course it was, but the it was like hit after hit after hit. Like, it was just you were getting like home run after home run after home run. Then you loaded the bases, grand slam. Grand fucking slam, man. Also, I
Look,
think our F-bomb count in this episode is the highest it's ever been. Usually we have maybe 1 or 2. This, I feel like we're
yeah.
probably sitting at 25. And to that I
Oh,
say, is this episode directed by Quentin Tarantino because of the amount of F-bombs? Well, if our bare feet were on the screen, the answer would be probably, but they aren't. I'm losing my mind. The point to all of this is, what a triumph.
oh, I look. First of all, if I had the time to do any sort of video editing, just know I would have put like a counter in the tops for every F bomb and then just have it like going up and up. I absolutely would have do that. I would don't have the time to edit the stuff. Let's just all be happy that the video's out there for free.
Yeah, very
Uh,
rare,
I
very rare.
rarely well, yeah, that is a rare thing, in our world, and I just don't have the time, to do a ton of editing. Um, but, I mean, this gave me so much joy to research. I love everything like celebrity hot goss, I love all of that. And it was the fastest I've ever written an episode. I was enthralled the whole time. I came alive, and I think that's why there were so many, F-bombs. I came alive.
Well, listen, we are all better for it. Christy Oxborough, fantastic work, truly a gift to all of us. We thank you for your time, your research, your passion, all of the above. And in this case, your passion for the truth.
Thank you so thank you so much for referencing, something that I sent you that the people don't see.
They don't, but
So
guess
I like
what?
that.
Guess what? They've heard all they needed to hear. And we thank you, dear listeners, for joining us on this wild romp. If you haven't already, give us a follow on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube at True Crime and Cocktails, on Twitter at Not Detectives. If you'd like a little more, some bonus content, perhaps us trying to figure out a list of 200 staff members MC Hammer once had, go over to patreon.com/True Crime and Cocktails for more about our subscription-based service over there. We've got bonus episodes and all kinds of fun stuff. And of course, the only place to get official True Crime and Cocktails merch is, of course, truecrewmerch.com. So check that out as well. And one final plug, if you're in Los Angeles, come down and see me play the Viper Room March 22nd, Friday, March 22nd. You can get tickets on my Instagram, Lauren Elizabeth Ash. Check that out if you're interested. Christy, do you want to tell the people about next week's episode?
On the next True Crime and Cocktails, Michelle Rivera Nice.
A case I know nothing about, and I could not be more jazzed to learn it from my best gal. Christy, do you want to say goodnight to the people?
Good night, Cam York.
Oh, good night, band, Turning Jane band. You gals rocked it. You killed it, and I commend you at any age. Hey.